our guest, Mary. Her name is Mary Gasparo, and she's an animal communicator. She's a paranormal investigator, and again, right up your alley, Steve, a cat rescuer. And she's in Pennsylvania, and she's known for her experience and knowledge in the field of the paranormal. Is also regarded for her successful large-scale paranormal events. She had a Gettysburg battlefield event, and then also the Stanley Hotel, which I love, and I can't wait to talk to her about that. Hi, Mary. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, and thank you for the invite tonight. I'm really
Well,
happy to be here.
absolutely. Maureen is going to join us. So if it sounds like I have a really bad cold and I sound like a female, it's because it's Maureen taking over, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Glad you
Not
pointed
be-
that out.
you might think that, we're obsessed or something. I become possessed by Maureen's spirit, and it's actually not true. But I can't wait to talk to you. I'm very interested, especially I've had an opportunity as a psychic to go into the Little Bighorn battlefield, Custer's
Oh,
Last Stand, and they, going around with some of the park rangers and things like that. Absolutely fascinating. But Gettysburg is one that would just, oh my gosh, that would just be. I would almost have to just make a purposeful road trip just to go and do that. What kind of events did you hold there?
well, I kind of hang my hat at a place called the Battlefield Bed and Breakfast. It's a
Okay.
33 plus acre farm that sits on part of the South Cavalry battlefield, and it butts up against Big Top and Little Round Top. So it's like right in the heart of things. The last battle was fought on this particular property.
Mm.
So I kind of met the owner, her name is Florence Tarbach, by accident. And we kind of got friendly, and I started doing events there. I've done 5 so far. And there are people that would love to do a paranormal investigation, and they're clueless on how to do it. They don't belong to a group, but they've always had an interest. So she kind of brings me in there, and we take the guests out. Of course, for me, it's a treat because you're right there at Gettysburg. I think I've had my first visual at Gettysburg.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh my God, you gotta wait. Hang on. Wait, Mary, my God, that's so cool. Because see, I see everything inside my head, right? And I had my first audio outside of myself when I've got a TV show that I did. We went to a haunted prison, and I actually heard the footsteps rather than just in my head. But you're having like visual, like outside yourself, yeah?
Oh yes. Well, when
Oh
I when
my
I
God.
first started out in the paranormal field, I mean, I ever since I was little, I always had that desire. You know, you go to sleepovers and somebody's telling scary stories, and right in the middle, somebody's a weenie and they're saying, "Stop, stop, you're scaring me." And I'm like, "No, continue, continue," you know? Or if they'd hear a noise in the corner, I'd be the one to go check it out. So it was very natural for me. I got married, had children, you know, did the whole thing. I'm still married. And when the kids grew up, they're not kids anymore, and they get upset when I still call them kids. They got married, moved out of the house. I had time for myself. I didn't have those responsibilities. I grew up in a home that was very active. So, you know, these things don't scare me. So I decided, you know what? Here I am. I'm 50 years old. I want to go be a paranormal investigator. You know, I was one of these people sitting home watching um, the ghost hunters. Oh, that's really cool. And so I
Yeah.
got enough nerve after like
Oh.
3 months of typing an email to this particular group and then, you know, getting rid of it. I said, that's it. I'm sending it. They're not going to want me. I'm too old. And next thing you know, boom, they contacted me right away. And I got accepted in the group, CCPRS, Chester County Paranormal Research Society. And back
Wow.
then, there was only like one or two in the whole entire area. Now you're tripping over paranormal groups. But I
Right.
started with them, and their place was always going to Gettysburg. So I did training between Fort Mifflin and Philadelphia and Gettysburg. That's where I did all of my paranormal training. My very first investigation was an overnight at the Jenny Wade House, and the next
Yeah.
night it was the Soldiers Museum.
Right. Oh.
We were down in the basement of the old orphanage. I mean, it was just like a
Yeah.
paranormal's dream come true to do these
It it is.
investigations.
Isn't that so exciting? Like, because I started out like you. Well, I don't know. You're braver than I am. I think I was not. I was not so brave, but yeah, just going to local places and kind of spooking around to see, if we could take pictures and stuff. And then when I started doing the TV show, and we went to like these prisons and this castle and
Oh,
like you said, the orphanage and stuff. And oh my God! And yeah, it's so crazy good, isn't it? It's still
oh, it. Well, going to Gettysburg with all the things that happened there, if you go there and you come home without any evidence, you weren't investigating. But my first visual that I had, I was standing out in the oh gosh, part of the field at this bed and breakfast, and I was talking to a friend of mine. Actually, it was Dinah Roseberry, who I co-wrote the book with, and
yeah.
her back was to the field, and I'm facing her, and all of a sudden my jaw drops, and she goes, "What do you see?" And there was somebody to my right who was looking at the same thing. And imagine now, here you are, you're standing here, Sunday morning, gorgeous day, and you see this horse start walking across the field, only it's missing its head, and
Stop
there's
it.
a Confederate soldier sitting on top of this horse from the waist down.
Oh,
I
come
couldn't
on,
get my.
Mary. That doesn't happen. Are you kidding me?
That was my very first visual of anything, and
Oh,
I'm like, this is really kind of creepy to see, but it was cool at the same time.
Mary, I don't know oh man, that's like, I don't know. For my experience, I think I'd want to run, but at the same time, it's like, no, that's totally it. What an exhilarating feeling, especially for
Oh.
being your first time. I would just think, for me, it would probably just be some little white, just kind of moving through. But that's,
No, this was, and it was just like, it was taking a Sunday afternoon stroll through a field. You know how they walk, horses kind
yeah,
of
right, right.
just kind of
Well,
walk. And I'm looking at this woman beside me, and I said, "Did you see that? Don't tell me what you saw." We both wrote it down independently and then handed it to Dinah, and it was matched. We matched perfectly.
that's
But
brilliant.
it's here it is, like 7 years later, and it's still so clear for me to see.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that will never go away. I so want to do that. And guess who my new paranormal best friend is if I come to Gettysburg, Mary.
Oh, I guess I just got a new best friend, didn't I? Oh,
See,
anytime you want to go. I love Gettysburg. I look for any excuse to go there.
oh my gosh. Well, I'll give you 1,000 excuses. But also tell me about the Stanley Hotel. I was raised in Colorado, in
Well,
Littleton.
it's the Shanley Hotel in
Oh, it is. So you know
Napanochie.
what? I'm reading off of the script here, and it does say the Shanley, but I've never heard of that, and so I thought it was the Stanley, which was the basis for Stephen King's movie, The Shining.
Well, it's easy to make the mistake. It's only
Oh,
like
I'm
a letter off,
sorry.
so
Well, so I apologize. So tell me
that's
about the
okay.
Shanley Hotel. What is that then?
Well, the Shanley Hotel is this old, obviously, it's a hotel. It was built back in the 1800s, but it's known for back in the day, as I call it, during Prohibition.
Okay.
And it has a bordello, it has a gentleman's quarters, and it was the place to be. A lot of gangsters were there, and there's pictures on the wall. There's a hidden room in the basement where they hid the liquor, and they hid themselves when the police came.
That's
It,
funny.
it's changed hands a few times. It burned down one time. There's a lot of strange deaths, especially with children that were reported there. So
Really?
it's very, very active. Again, that's another place that I go to frequently, and I just love it there.
Wow.
Um,
That's
you get all kinds of experiences.
very exciting. Well, listen, we'll go on to the other things you do. Those two names obviously just popped out at me, of course, when I thought it was the Stanley, but still very fascinating. It's just great, all the ghost hunting stuff. So let me ask you this then, with animal communication, how did you decide, or did you, like for most of us, we don't really decide, do we? It just kind of happens. But how did you decide that animal communication was more in the line of where you wanted to go with the many facets of the paranormal?
Well, a few years ago, well, 7 years ago, when I met Dinah Roseberry, she was part of the paranormal group that I joined. But I always had a fascination ever since I was little with animals. I think my earliest recollection, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and we were on vacation. And this sounds kind of tacky, but they didn't have like a trash pickup at the end of your vacation. You had to take your trash and like dump it in this dump, and I was with my uncle. And I was fairly young, and he'd say, don't leave the car area. Well, I was getting drawn to this area. I mean, it was like this big giant hole, and people would back their car up and just throw stuff down. And there was a bag like hanging over the edge on the other side, and
Oh,
I had to go to that bag. When I went over to the bag and opened it up, there was a little puppy inside,
aw.
and I
Now
I
I
took
just
it.
want to clarify. A real puppy and it had its head, right? I just want to clarify.
It was alive. It was moving around. I mean, it was covered with peanut butter and jelly and everything. And I picked it up, and my uncle said, "You can't take that home. Your mother's going to have a fit." I said, "But I have to take it home with me." So when we went back to our place where we were staying, my parents gave in and they let me keep it. Now, here's an interesting story about this puppy. I named it Henry. Now, what 9, 10-year-old kid is going to name a dog Henry? You're going to name it Spot or Fluffy or something like that. But I
You would.
named it Henry. And I later found out that one of my spirit guides' names is Henry.
Oh
So
my
I don't know
goodness.
whether Henry was pushing me over in that direction, but later on, we had the dog for a few years. The dog had gotten really sick, and I kept telling my parents, "Henry's sick, Mom. Henry's sick," and they didn't believe me till it was too late when they brought the dog over to the vets. It had a disease that was not something that you could diagnose quickly, and they just thought that I was just kind of lucky. But that's my first recollection on having a connection with animals. And all through my life growing up, if I stopped over people's homes, I ended up not talking to them, but playing with their dog or their cat or their bird. But it really started to take effect with me when I hooked up with Dinah, and she started working on me on animal communication skills because she saw something in me that I just thought was, doesn't everybody relate the animals like I
Of
do?
course.
She put a name to it, and just kind of went forward from there.
Wow. What what do you remember some of your first communications? Like what were the animals first telling you, or how did you know that I guess you know it's coming from the animal, but I mean, like
Right.
what was just some of that first communication that you began to really start to pick up on? Or do you remember like your first reading, I guess, with an animal?
Well, I guess maybe I could answer better with when I started taking things seriously. Okay. One
Ah,
day I was
yeah.
in a pet shop and I wrote about this in the book. And I'm standing there, and every time I was actually going in to get fish food. We had aquariums, and of course, any good animal lover, you don't just go right to what you're getting. You kind of stroll and look. And I was in the back, and I was looking at cockatiels. I'm sorry, parakeets. My daughter had just lost a parakeet, and I was looking to see, man, maybe I'll get her a new one, bring it home. When all of a sudden I hear, look at me, like in a little kid's voice. And I'm looking around expecting to see some little kid behind me calling out, maybe she was holding a puppy, and I turn around, there was nothing. So, I'm there, I'm looking at the parakeets, and they're preening themselves, and I hear it again, look at me, look at me. And I'm looking around, nothing. So again, I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's something coming from the loudspeaker because they did have music on. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, there was this beautiful yellow cockatiel sitting by itself in the bottom of this big cage, staring right at me. And I looked and I
Wow.
said, "Are you talking to me?" And all I kept hearing was, "Take me home." I'm looking around, okay, I'm really losing it now. But anyway, that particular day, I went home with more than fish food. Daffy, I called her Daffy after Daffodil, is now a part of our, well, it's been a part of our family for about 10 years now. So that was
Wow.
probably the first time I remember actually hearing an animal speak to me.
That's and you heard this now again just to understand because there is a difference. You heard it audibly or with your inner ear, like your imagination ear.
I think it was more my imagination ear,
Yeah, right.
because I could clearly hear the music that was coming out of the speakers inside the store. But this was something that was like echoing inside my head. But at the time when it first occurred, I thought it was actually a little child talking to me. So,
Wow.
but you can imagine my expression on my face when I look down and there's this cockatiel staring right at me, trying to have
Well,
a
no,
conversation.
yeah. That's just kind of crazy. What kinds of things like with some of your most memorable communications with some of the animals, what Gosh, there's so many questions to ask you, Mary. So we're gonna extend this interview to 8 hours. I hope that's okay with you.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
I'll
why
just,
not?
I don't need sleep tonight. No big deal.
But my question is, so overall, so you've done so many readings and energy and getting into animals and such. Overall, have you learned what animals are? In other words, there's so many perceptions, or so many concepts of animals are really angels. They're people who had lived past lives and came back to be an animal. So many different things that people have come up with. What do you think now? And again, overall feeling, or have they come right out and told you what they are?
I've done a lot of thought about that. I don't think they're people coming back.
Okay.
Um, I've got this thing with the Native American Indians and how they've always valued the spirit of animals.
Yeah.
They have different things that have different meanings. And, I know you didn't get Maureen has a copy of the book. And the ending, the conclusion of the book kind of sums up everything on my feelings on why animals are here. And I think they're teachers, whether they're spirits, angels, I mean, whatever you want to call them. I believe that they're teachers to us. Because if you think about the world of animals, they've been here forever. Okay, they survived many things. Why? Because they know something we don't know. And I've taken it upon myself, and I've raised my kids this way. If you have animals, study them, because you have a lot to learn from these animals. They're survivors, and they can teach you so much. So I think there's some type of guides, angels, whatever you want to call them. But I don't think they're actual, like, people coming back as a dog or a cat. I
Yeah,
may
I
be
don't I
wrong.
don't think that either. Bless people's hearts. They want so much. I work with a lot of grief, obviously, and people who've lost their loved ones. And I had somebody who had approached me one time, said that she thought her dog was her dad. And I'm like, oh goodness sakes, you have to be delicate because that's what they believe. And I didn't try to change her mind, but at the same time let her know that dad would be comfortably waiting for her on the other side, and that that I think definitely the people from the other side can influence animals. But yeah, I like more protectors because I've seen animals as that, almost
Oh,
like
yeah.
like the human and the animal have been together in previous lifetimes, and they're here to kind of watch over and protect. Have you run into that, or am I way off base?
Oh, I believe that they are protectors. And I think that animals, at least the ones that I deal with and ones that I've, gone out on investigations, um, I really think that they're almost like a kindred spirit type thing. For
Yes.
example, about a month ago, I got that horrible norovirus. I was so sick. I couldn't even get out of bed. I have 5 cats. One is a rescue. Well, actually, out of the 5 I have right now, 2 are mine, 3 are rescue. But the latest one, he doesn't, where I'm sitting right now doing the show, this is his room. He doesn't leave here. He's got a lot of issues from where he was before. But the other 4 were around me. They didn't leave my side the whole time I was sick. And it wasn't because, hey, mommy's home, right? They they were glued to me to make sure that I was okay. If I
Yeah.
come home from work and I've had a bad day at work, they know automatically. I mean, they pick up on how you react, how you feel, if you're crying, if you're happy. It's amazing. I get a lot of stories from people that say the same thing. Oh, my dog, knew I was sad and came over and was spending a lot more time with me, was giving me kisses, the whole 9 yards. They're very perceptive.
Very perceptive. Absolutely. I mean, you can feel that inside of them when, again, the whole sadness or depression or things like that. They're always around. They just have that calming nature. That's why, excuse me. I also do a lot of work in. I'm a singer and I sing in old folks' homes, senior homes and such. And
Hmm.
there's always people who are bringing in dogs and things like that. There's just something about dogs, cats,
Right.
and of course babies that even in the place where I work at, of course, they really specialize in dementia or memory loss, that type of thing. But I'm telling you, they come alive when that animal is there. There's something that shoots right through all of that, and there's a recognition in those people.
Yeah, and I think that the animals also pick up if there's problems with people. Um, One of the stories that's in the book is it has to do with a really good friend of mine and her son. He's autistic,
Um,
and she lost her husband a few years back, and her son being autistic. I mean, they can't come and grieve like you and I would. They can't tell you this is bothering me. They do, but it's like in a different form than what we would think. Their thought process is different.
right,
And she felt really bad. She knew that her son was suffering, and she didn't know how to help him until
right.
one day she noticed he was in the living room and he's talking up a storm, and who's sitting next to him but the family cat. For 4 hours this went on. That cat did not move, and that cat appeared to be listening to everything he had to say. And not too long after that little, get together, he started coming out of his depression of losing his father. And that's not the first time that I've heard stories like that. Um, it's also said, and I don't know if you remember, there was something posted about this cat that hangs out in a nursing home. That right before somebody passes away, that cat goes and hangs out with that person, sleeps with them, lays with them. It's like it has this inner thing that it knows that that person's going to die. They leave the cat there, and as this person is passing, it's very soothing to that person that they have this cat with them.
Right. It's
So,
just crazy. There's just too many stories, if you're spiritually open, there's just too many things about the beasts of our planet that are just so much other than. And it just it I'm one of those bleeding hearts, I guess, where I don't go hunting either, and I just can't. There are just so much more than. I'm sure that's what you've discovered yourself. I mean,
yeah.
there's some pretty amazing work that takes place with the animals and the communication that not only you have, but do you find it also that it's probably beneficial to also teach the owners how to communicate with their animal, like to recognize here's what they're doing when they do this and
Right.
such.
Well, the funny thing is I think most people that have pets and treat them, well, let me rephrase this. My pets aren't pets. They're part of the family.
Yes.
And there's two types of people out there that they go out and they get, I'll say animals for, I can come up with 20 other better words, but I call mine my fur babies. Okay. But we have
Okay.
the people, like I have a guy that lives next door that has a dog. All hours a day, that poor dog's outside. Okay. Most of the time, I'm feeding it and giving it water. That person shouldn't have a dog. Okay. But he sees animals differently than I do. If it's starting to rain, bring the dog in. I'm real careful with my cats that I have, but people who really really care about their animals that they have, um, you I believe that they're already in tune with their animals. They're just like kids. You
Yeah.
know right away. Once you develop that rapport with your animal. I can tell right away, like this morning, for example, I was having some quiet time with one of my cats. She jumps on my chest, and I'm petting her, and all of a sudden another one jumps in and's beside me. Well, the expression on her face was priceless. It was like a little kid that, you just messed up mommy's time and mine. You get your time. And she left mad. I mean,
Oh no.
she got upset and she made this little whimper noise, scrunched up her face, and she left. Now, I know that that was a little bit of jealousy there. Okay. I could feel it coming from her. I mean, you pay attention to your animals. It's not eating right, it's walking funny, or it's not as, I mean, they have emotions too. I have one that's always happy, and once in a while, when she's got that I don't look happy, something's wrong. That's a little bit of animal communication. It's just kind of pay attention. They're
Well,
like
really,
kids.
that's all it is. You're right. Just pay attention. I mean, there's silly things, and of course, you and I can say we just pay attention maybe more, or we feel it more. But everybody knows. I mean, I have a friend who's an animal lover, and she knows how it's pooping and what it does, and
Right.
there's things to tell. You just know, don't you? And some people just, I think sometimes they really worry so much about their pets, and they can't tune in. Obviously, when you worry and you're upset and you're depressed, you can't tune in to anything, let alone your animals.
Exactly. I mean, animal communications is I consider it a gift, and mine goes a lot further than just, oh, Daisy didn't eat her whole bowl of food. I wonder if she's sick. She's looking a little weird, whatever. I mean, there's times where you have to really dig in deep. I'm an empath. I do most of my work because of my empathic abilities. Dinah and I, we work really well together because we do it differently. She does a lot with the pendulum,
Right.
the light beings. I use my senses when it comes to animals. We get a
Right.
lot of calls for people that are missing their dog, their cat, the bird flew out the window, that sort of thing.
Okay.
She uses a photograph. I don't need one. Once I hear a name, it's like I get sucked into like another world, and I focus in on that animal. And one of the coolest ones that we found, a dog, was this was a rescued dog. It had a troubled past. It was abused, and the foster parents were, trying to, relax it. And every time you open the door, this dog ran out. They just couldn't control it because it just always wanted to get free. But anyway, it was a golden retriever, and this dog got out and was missing for 2 weeks. Then we get the call. So, I'm trying to, track this dog down in my head, and all of a sudden I smell this disgusting smell, the worst smell I ever smelled. But that was a good sign, because if somebody calls me up and says, "Look, I can't find my cat or I can't find my dog," and I get into my spot that I need to get into to try and track this in my head, and I get nothing, that usually tells me the dogs or the cats, it's not alive anymore. I mean,
Oh
I'll
no.
continue for a while. But anyway, I'm smelling this horrible smell. And at the same time, I'm hearing trash trucks go by. I could hear all these trash trucks.
Right.
So Dinah's seeing like a farm in this field. And I'm like, yeah, but it's near trash trucks and there's this god awful smell. Well, it turns out they found the dog. It was on this Amish farm. It was feeding off of a carcass of a calf that had died like 2 weeks ago, and that was the horrible smell I was picking up. And
Oh
the
my God.
farm, the farm butted up against a trash company. Where the trash depot where the trucks would come in and out.
Right.
But that's how we put it together. She saw a farm. She saw the horses. She knew it was an Amish farm because she saw the buggy. And I kept saying, well, there's a smell, and I'm hearing trash trucks. So that's where the people went around till they found a farm that was up against the trash company, and there was the dog. It was healthy. It was stuffed. It was eating. Not what you'd want to feed it, but
No.
that's basically how we work. I mean, I have to rely on, my senses, how I feel, what I smell, what I hear. And that's how we work with, finding the missing animals. But like I said, if I can't pick up anything, it's usually a sign that not good.
Oh goodness. And that, of course, is nothing, something you don't want to tell the
No,
person.
no,
It's got to be
that's the hard
difficult
part.
too, psychically when you're tuning in and know what you know. Of course, the people don't want to believe that until they see it. It's difficult, like because they're just going to chalk it up to you're just wrong or you couldn't tune in. Maybe it was you, yada yada yada. All these excuses, and it's just got to be a very difficult thing to. I'm not saying you want to convince them, but when you're relaying the message, it's kind of all you can do, isn't it? Whether they believe you or not.
Right. Well, thank God I haven't had too many of those. And we've had two, but I've let Dinah handle that one. Here, you handle it. I got to this part, you handle it. Some of the things that's hard as an animal communicator is when you have a sick pet, terminally, and the owners come to you and they say, "Well, what do you think?" And I mean, I'm not a veterinarian. I can only tell you what I'm feeling.
Right.
And I don't say, "Hey, your dog's got a heart issue or there's tumors all over." I might suggest that take the dog to the vets, get some blood work done, and have them check this area. And let the doctor do the work. Okay, I only try to suggest, because in the end, if no matter what happens, it becomes your fault or they get upset with you, can't you heal? Can't you do this? I'm not a healer. Okay, I'd love to be able to heal animals, but I have not been given that gift yet to do. I can only steer you in the right direction. There's somebody sitting in the chat room right now that's really, 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 they're good friends of mine. And they lost a couple of their pets and they thought they did something wrong. But between Dinah and myself, we found out that it wasn't anything you did. There was something wrong with the food. The food was contaminated. And I
Oh,
believe there were autopsies done to these animals. And they found out that there was some stomach issues. We're not God. We can't come right up with 100% and say it's this way or the highway. You need to be able to make some decisions on your own. Use your head and go to the vets. Go and do this. But if there's an opportunity that we can lessen the blow to these owners of these animals that they've had some problems, that it's not your fault, then we try and do so.
wonderful, wonderful. Listen, we're going to take just a quick commercial break. I'm loving what you're saying, especially when it comes to trying to heal. That sometimes you just big old can't. But we're going to get into some of the other areas that you work with, and then I want to ask about communications with the bigger animals to see if you have any experience with that. So hang on just a second. It's just a real quick 1 minute commercial, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Mary Gasparo, who is an animal communicator, paranormal investigator, and all-around good egg. She's going to be back with us for more Psychic Access here in just a moment. Stay with us.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
And welcome back, everyone. Again, our guest is Mary Gasparo, animal communicator, paranormal investigator, and also a cat rescuer in Pennsylvania. And she's our guest tonight. Welcome back. So, Mary, I got to ask you, have you, you probably, and it's funny because when people are going to ask me psychic questions, you always get usually the same question. They always preface it with, you probably get this all the time. So, have you ever been in a zoo or had chances to be close to, I guess I'm picturing a lion, a big cat, and communicated with them? And if so, what's the word?
Well, I have not tried anything in a zoo yet, so I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I can talk about a horse, if that counts.
It all counts. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This horse resides on the battlefield bed and breakfast, and his name is Ferrybury. And I seem to be attracted to rescue animals for some reason. And unbeknown to me, he was a rescue. He was just about ready to go to what they call the glue factory. And Florence heard that there was a situation, and she went over and scooped up 20 horses and found other people to take the horses, and she kept Ferrybury. Now, he's a little cantankerous at times. He's beautiful. I have no problems with him, but we were there for Halloween, and we were all dressed up, getting ready to go into this haunted barn for a Halloween party. And again, I'm hearing this voice in my head. And if you can get like a gangster type sound going, no, I'm serious. It was like, hey, you. Hey, you, I'm talking to you, right? So I'm looking around and I'm thinking it's one of our guys that joined us and they're dressed up like a gangster, and they're playing with us.
Yeah, right. Like a mobster gang.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
So I'm looking at Dinah and she's, because I'm looking around. She goes, what are you looking at? I said, you didn't hear that? She goes, no, I didn't hear anything. Okay, here we go. So we go a little bit further, and we were kind of running late, so the pace of us walking was pretty fast. I mean, here I am, I'm hosting this event, and the host is running late to this her own party. So, we start all again. It was louder. You, I'm talking to you, right? And I said to Dinah, now come on, you heard that. She goes, no, I didn't hear that. She says, but that horse is talking to you. And this horse is looking right at me. I'm like, I don't have time to talk to this horse right now. She goes, you better go over. So I go over and I'm like, okay, Fairyberry, here I am. I'm running late, so make it fast. And I'm talking out loud to him just like that. And I'm thinking, if anybody's looking at me, I'm like, what the heck? These are all paranormal people anyway, so they shouldn't think I'm crazy. So it turns out this poor horse all day long is in the barn, corralled into this area. And what does it see all day long? Across the driveway is a whole row of apple trees. What do horses like? They like apples. So he's kind of really aggravated that he sees them. They're on the tree. They're dropping on the ground, and he doesn't get any apples. So I said, I'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. So as we were leaving the next day, I pulled Florence aside, the owner, and I said, look, you got to do me a favor. I said, Fairyberry is really unhappy. And she goes, why? And I was so thankful she didn't ask me how I knew this, but she's kind of on board with some of the things that we do anyway. And I said, he sees these apples and he wants some. So as it turned out, she took my advice, and every day he was getting his apple. Well, about 6 months later, I went back to the B&B and I went up, and as soon as he saw me, he came running to the fence. And I said, you getting your apples now? And he's telling me, yes, I get them every day. Thank you so much. Well, I was there in August and October last year. And when I went in August and I pulled up, and he was all the way over on the other side of the pasture. And I said, let me try something with him. I get out of the car, and in my head, I yell, Fairyberry. Well, he was over there eating something, and he lifts his head up, and he looks at me, and he comes running across the pasture, and we met at the fence. Now, how cool is that he heard me, and I didn't, vocally get it out there. He heard it because I was calling to him.
Wow.
So that's my experience with a larger animal. But no, I haven't done tigers, bears, or elephants yet. But I was thinking about it.
I was gonna say, haven't you wanted to? Like I would, if I'm scurrying about, I would just have to go to a zoo and try to tune in, just because I got to see the extent of what this, what the powers are. You know what I mean? Like, what can I do? And go. It would just be very fascinating to see their perspective on things, or if it's really quite the same as a regular cat, or such. It'd just be interesting.
Well, I think maybe one of the reasons why, I mean, we have two zoos that are very close. One's a smaller one, and I don't live too far from the Philadelphia Zoo, which is like the oldest zoo in the country. It's a big zoo. And I think one of the things that's stopping me from going is, how would you like to go into a place and the first thing you run across is a gorilla? And the gorilla says, I really hated being here. I'm miserable. I can't stand this place. I want to be hanging on a tree out, in the woods somewhere, in the jungles. That's been my fear on what I might pick up.
So you might pick up like on the sorrow and sadness and things like that, but
right.
I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see that. And I would just have to worry about not projecting my stuff onto that, because that's what I would think. I feel, you feel a certain compassion for them and sorriness for them and stuff, but be brave, Mary, because you have to report back. I want to know what the elephant is thinking.
I'll work on it. It just hasn't. Maureen knows me pretty well, and most of the people that know me know what I do. I just recently, sort of, as you would say, come out of the closet on this animal communications. I was always worried about people thinking I was some kind of a nut or a wannabe. Yeah. Oh yeah, all of a sudden she's an animal communicator. So I've been moving slowly along. Because people do come to you and say, look, can you do a reading? Can you do this? Can you check this out? And I never looked at myself as somebody who had this gift. Right. And the moment that I said, when Dinah said, look, you're better than me. You're so much stronger. You need to get out there, get the word out, because not so much for the people, but for the animals that you need to help. And it's the truth. You know, I mean, there's so many things that go on out there, and if I can help people with their animals, then that's helping the animal. You
Right.
know, it's just a personal thing. Yeah, would I like to go stand on the roof? Hey, I'm an animal communicator. It's just a title, and I don't look at it as anything special. It's just something that I was given to do.
Absolutely. Well, and I think energy is energy, and tuning into humans and animals, I think is really the same kind of thing. And you know, there's just people who specialize in certain of those parts, and I think because of your heart connection, you know, that's very evident when you're talking about animals, just talking about doing it. That's just a place where you got steered towards, and I think it's fantastic. You big freak, yeah. I think it's
Yeah,
great.
I'm a freak, all right. And I'm married to somebody who never grew up with a pet in his house, no animals. We've been happily married for 35 years. He doesn't. He's in the beginning. He wasn't too happy, and for years I didn't have a pet. And I actually started out about 22 years ago with my first rescue. It was a little black kitten. She was only 4 weeks old. And she got smashed in the face with a lawn tractor. Her jaw was broken, and I mean, I just took her home because the person was going to kill her, and he was trying to, and I couldn't let that happen. So I let her hang out in my daughter's room. We had her for 4 weeks, and he never knew it. She had gone and had surgery on her face. Well, one night, my daughter must have got up during the night, and she forgot to close her door. And my husband was sitting up late. It was a Saturday night, and he's watching a movie, pitch black, because I'm already in bed. So he had the lights on. The only light that was on was from the television set. All of a sudden, I hear him say, "What the heck is that?" Well, the little kitten, who was black and had one little white dot under her neck, of course she's going to follow the sound. And she comes to him. And that was when he found out we were the owner of our first cat. Well, 6 cats later, he's
That is funny.
definitely taken to them. And it's funny because animals, and here's an observation, and I don't know if you've ever noticed this going anywhere, but did you ever notice that somebody who does not care for animals, they go into somebody's house that has animals, and those animals flock to that person?
I've
It's
seen that.
it's it's like a given,
Absolutely. And I always find that very interesting. Like, you know, for somebody who doesn't like animals, they sure like you.
right? Well, there's a reason for that because they want to try and change them around a little bit. But my husband went from no animals in this house to I hear him down there talking to him. I mean, I have one that when he goes to sit down to eat dinner, has to sit on his lap and has to be petted a few times before he can eat his dinner. And it's like, you know, they follow him now. He loves them. He cuts me
That's
up all the
great.
time saying, I'm going to leave the front door open and let them all around. No, you aren't. But he, if anything was to happen to any of them, he would take it worse than me now. So he's converted.
We got him. We got him on our
Yes, we
side.
did. But you
So,
know, another thing that I also have found out is most animal people, they kind of flock together.
yeah.
It's just interesting. You know, we kind of, you know, how like attracts like.
Yeah, I mean yeah, it's very true. There's just an instant understanding. It's funny to me how people can't be animal people. I guess you know what I mean. Like how can you just not? Kind of crazy.
Yeah,
So
and you know what? And they're the ones that are better off not even trying to fake like they like animals. You know, just don't get one because they're the animals that get like skittish and they get a little weird, and that's almost like punishment because you know animals like the attention. They like being petted and scratched and make a fuss over. You know, and if you just got one because it's on your bucket list that you can cross off, you know, dog,
yeah,
cat, bird,
right.
you know, okay, fine. It's not fair to the animal. A lot of times, you know, they'll get something, and then the next thing you know, within a year, it's over to shelter.
That's so yeah. I really don't like that. I don't like some of these families who oh, I'm just going to try it out for a while and see how it works. Or I've also never been. I'm like you, where my dog is so much a part of my family. I have a poodle who just turned 17 last month, and he still just runs around and such.
Mhm.
But you hear people who, after 10 years of owning an animal, and they have to say move
Oh
houses,
yeah.
right? They have to
Oh
move, and they don't take them with them. Or yeah, we had to give him up after 10 years or so. Oh my gosh, I could never. That's
Oh, well,
Crazy.
you should sit behind the computer when you get the emails. I don't run a rescue. I work with many rescues, and I primarily try and help out Persians and Himalayans, the specialty breeds. I mean, I'll take any dog, cat, whatever. Okay, but
Right.
I'm known as the Himi guru of Pennsylvania for Himalayans, and they usually end up on my lap because long-haired cats are hard to take care of, and nothing bothers me as much as I had one recently, a 12-year-old flame point Himalayan female. Owner's allergic. Now, it took you 12 years to figure out you're allergic to that cat.
Right. Come on.
You know, the cat's getting older now. They don't want to be bothered with some of the things that you run across when, just like people get older. Okay, what are you going to toss away your mother because she's 80 years old and she's got a limp and arthritis and, heart condition?
Yeah.
And fortunately, I've been pretty lucky and I've always been able to place these cats. But seriously, 12 years? It took you 12 years to get allergic to something?
Right. Come on. Well, listen, we're going to start running out of time, and I don't want to not talk about, your other projects and things that you have going on. Now, is it you or Dinah that does the hypnosis and
That's
such?
Dinah. Dinah
Okay.
does the hypnosis.
She has
Yes.
to get her own spot on the show. This is Mary's show.
Yeah,
Right.
Dinah, I wish she could join me. Dinah's not in the best of health right now. So I'm doing a lot of the PR for the book.
Okay.
Um,
That's what I want to. So tell me about the book. What is the title?
the title of the book is Animals Impacting the World.
I love the cover of that. I
Thanks.
really, I mean, wolf. You have to have a wolf on there, don't you? I love that.
Well, the
And
wolf's in the book.
yeah,
We went
that's so.
to
Tell
a
me, so
sanctuary.
what's it about?
The actual book, it actually started out as a chicken soup for the soul type book, and there's
Okay,
only a small section in there now that's has those kind of stories. It's a follow up of her first book. It's Dinah wrote Psychic Pets Solving Paranormal Mysteries, and there's 2 or 3 chapters where I'm in it, and she talks about how she taught me to be an animal communicator. Talked about my animals, and so when she decided to do the second book, she says, "You've got to do this book with me." So what we've kind of ironed out in there is like we've got the stories about autism, swimming with dolphins, how they're very therapeutic. She talks about the pendulum and how she can. She does it's not actual healing. She can kind of do diagnosis with the pendulum. She talks about being animal communicators. Well, I'm talking like she read the book. Being an animal communicator, finding your animal guides. I wrote an article. There's one of the chapters in there that I wrote is pet grieving. And people don't realize just how much animals grieve when they lose, like most people have more than one animal nowadays. They have a couple. And if one of those die, they grieve just like we do. If we lost someone or we lose a pet. I mean, I had one that almost died herself. She didn't eat for almost a month
yeah,
because one of the other cats passed away, and they were playmates.
I've seen that.
So
I've
I
seen them
read on.
go, and both of them die, or they tell me after the owner died, two dogs would die 3 days later.
Oh
There
yeah,
is no coincidence with that.
no, there isn't. So I put in steps on how you can help your grieving animal come out of it. So there's it's all types of stories in there.
I think bacon pretty much doesn't it, Mary? Or bacon heals all with dogs. I know.
They shouldn't eat it, but they get it. Are you kidding? Any kind of food makes a dog happy. It's the cats that are
It's
persnickety.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Mary, I've so really, really enjoyed talking with you. You're absolutely fantastic. I love the stories about Gettysburg. Don't forget, we're friends, best friends now.
Oh
So when I
yeah.
come out and I show
Well,
up
I'm
at
gonna I'm gonna be heading up to the Shanley Hotel May 3rd and 4th for the Lower Catskills Paracon. It's hosted by
okay,
Penn. And I posted today on Facebook. You'll have to look me up on Facebook, but there's an awesome video of a ghost cat meandering through the 3rd floor that was captured on an IR camera. So
ooh,
got to get up there. That cat's been heard. I have EVPs of the meows. I've heard it, real time, and now somebody finally got it on video.
brilliant. And that's on your Facebook page then.
Yes, yes,
So it's Mary Gasparo,
yes.
Gasparo. Look her up on Facebook, and then the website, you can also get it off of psychicaccesstalkradio.com. We have her link there as well. But otherwise, it's DinahRoseberry.com. DINAH is Dinah, and then roseberry.com. Wonderful. Gosh, I can't even thank you enough, Mary, for taking time out and coming on the show and speaking with us. I think this is it's a whole nother world, isn't it? With, when you're communicating with animals, and then so after you go to the zoo, I want an update, and then
I will certainly let you know.
and then you're going to come down here, and we're going to go to SeaWorld.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'll give it a shot.
One step at a time, darling. It's okay. Well, I'll hold your hand. It'll be just fine.
All right, I will do that for you.
Mary, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We really appreciate it. All the best. Keep doing what you do, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk again.
Absolutely. Thank you. And
bye. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.